Welcome back to the poker vlog. This time we decided to head out a little bit east to Morongo, just near Palm Springs with the boys. We decided to go into the $2 game, and Morongo is a little bit of an interesting buying situation. The minimum buying is $40 and the max is $100. So pretty small for a 1-2 game, but it's good for us. This is only my second time ever playing at a casino. We're usually paying 10 cents, 20 cents, so $1, $2 is a big increase in blind structure for me. We get into a few interesting pots, and we had a lot of fun. So here goes. So first interesting hand of the session, we looked at a pocket jacks under the gun, raise it up to $6, and I'm getting called by the small blind. So we go to a flop, it comes 2-4-4 with 2 diamonds on the board. Small blind checks, and we decide to continuation bet here for $8, and the small blind decides to make the call. The turn is now the 9 of hearts, so it doesn't change much. And when the small blind checks to us again, we want to continue going for some value. So we decide to bet $15, targeting any hand like a 4, of course a flush draw. Since we don't have the jack of diamonds in our hand, it's even more likely that it might have a flush draw. But here the small blind just decides to call. And now going to the river, it comes the king of spades. So again, we probably still have the best hand. However, when it checks over to us, I'm wondering what really can I continue to get value from? Obviously any king high flush draws now turn into top pair, they'll likely call. And even though it is somewhat likely that he has a 4, we don't know if we get value from that, so we decided to just check back the river here. And it's a very good thing we do, as a small blind turns over 2-4 suited for the flopped full house. So we got lucky, honestly, that he didn't check raise us, because we would have lost a lot more money on the hand. But anyways, on to the next one. The next interesting hand we play, we look down at beautiful pocket aces in the big blind. There is a middle position limper, and the small blind decides to fold, so we decide to raise it $6 more, and the original limper makes the call. Now this player is an older gentleman. He just sat down to the table. He has a relatively small stack. It looks like he's playing relatively tight. The flop now comes 67 with 2 clubs on it. We want a continuation bet here 100% of the time, as there are a ton of draws we can get value from, as well as hands that might have made a small pair on this flop. So we decide to continue betting for $6, and the limper decides to make the call. So we are a little bit worried that we could get a bad run out here, but the turn is the king of spades, which was interesting as it brings in a spade flush draw, but we have the ace of spades. Definitely want to continue betting here, as we can get value from any hand that decided to float the flop with a king, or any pair that decides to get sticky, as well as deny equity from draws. So we decide to bet $15, and the older gentleman decides to make the call. The river is now the 4 of diamonds. All the flush draws brick out. However, a couple straight draws do get there, such as 3-5 and 5-8. We can't be too scared of those, so we decide to continue betting, try and get value from any 1 pair hands with a bet of $15. Our opponent now goes in the tank for a decent amount of time. It looks like he's playing with his chips, and it looks as if he's counting out $15 worth of chips for a call. However, he then decides to go all in for an additional $22, and we now have a very tough decision on our hands. 20 more?
37 total. 22 more.
22. This is obviously a very tough spot for us. Looking at the direct pot odds, we're getting about 5-1. So this gentleman has to be bluffing about 20% of the time here for this to be a profitable call. The question is, what hands does he really bluff with here? I think a good candidate to bluff with here would be like an ace, X of clubs that blocks a straight, maybe like ace 5 of clubs, ace 8 of clubs, as we don't have the ace of clubs in our hand, so we unblock that. However, he also does have some 2 pair in his range that he could limp call with, and also he could have the 3-5 or the 5-8 for the straight. However, in our head here, we just think maybe he's going crazy with some hand like king jack or king queen, so we decide to go ahead and put in the chips for the call. Looking back at it, this might be the wrong decision, but we decided to just go for it.
All right, turn them over, please. 5-8.
5-8 straight.
This next hand, we are down a few chips from losing the 2 previous pots. However, when we look down at ace king under the gun, we decide to raise it up to $6. We get 1 caller from middle position, and everyone else at the table decides to go with the fold. Now, it's heads up going to a flop, which comes ace deuce 5 rainbow. So we have ace king on a relatively dry board with a pair of aces. We decide to continuation bet for $6, and our heads up player decides to make the call. This player seems relatively competent. I mean, he's been playing fairly tight pre-flop all day and making some loose calls, but otherwise playing pretty solid. The turn is a great card for us. It gives us 2 pair, which gives us the advantage over any hand like ace deuce, ace 5. And at this point, we only have about $25 left in our stack. So it's either a shove or a small bet. And we decided to go with the small bet this time for $8, and we get called. The river is now the 4 clubs. A 3 now does make a straight, but we don't think our opponent has too many 3s in his range. So we decide to go with the all-in for $18. 18.
I call.
Give it 3?
Yeah.
Wow. 7 and 3.
Show me.
7
That's great.
We decide to rebuy for $100 more after losing the hand with ace king, and we look down and see ace 8 offsuit in middle position. There are a couple limpers to us, so we decide to limp as well, and it limps through. The big blind checks. We go to a flop, which comes ace queen 8 with 2 clubs. This is a good one for us. We have 2 pair, and the big blind decides to lead into us for $5. Here we have a bit of a decision, as there definitely is merit to raising here. With a bunch of other people behind us, we don't want to get beat out by a hand like ace queen. And we feel all right giving draws a decent price, because if we happen to boat up, then we can get a lot of value from them. So we decide on just a smooth call for $5, and we go to a turn, which is 3 ways. The turn is now the 3 of spades. The big blind this time slows down and checks it over to us. Here we have a pretty clear bet, as we don't want any draws like king 10, queen jack, or a club draw to get a free card. We decided to bet $15 with our 2 pair. And the gentleman who stacked us with ace king decides to call the $15. The big blind decides to fold his cards. The river now comes a great card for us as the 8 of spades. So we boat up, and we only have about $44 left in our stack. So it's a pretty easy decision. We shove it all in for $44. The gentleman who stacked us with ace king announces that he wished the board did not pair, and he pretty easily folds his cards. He later would tell me that he had a pair of queens. In this hand, we see an under the gun raise to $4. Our friend Ira calls on the button, and we decide to make the call for $2 more with 4-9 offsuit in the big blind. The flop comes a beautiful 4-9-8 with 2 diamonds on it. Under the gun says a continuation bet for $8, and Ira now raises it up to 20. So now we've got a little bit of an interesting decision on our hands. We could re-raise to make sure to deny equity from any diamond or straight draws out there. However, we know that the player behind us is a super aggressive player. He loves to bluff. He loves to go all in on mediocre hands. So we decided to just put in the smooth call with our 2 pair. And just like we thought, the aggressive under the gun player decides to shove all of his chips in the middle for 45 more. Ira gets out of the way, and we now have a pretty easy call. If he happens to have a set, he has a set, but let's go for it. So we put the chips in the middle. Under the gun player turns over pocket aces, so we're about a 75% chance to win the hand. Then all we need to do is dodge an 8 or an ace. However, the turn comes another 8, counterfeiting our 2 pair, giving him aces and 8s. So on the river, we need either a 4 or a 9 to stay alive, but we do not suck out this time. We lose a huge pot to this aggressive player, and after this hand, we ended up going all in for our $15 remaining. We get called by pocket 4s, and we lose that coin flip, and that's the end of the session. So after playing for about 6 hours, we ended up down $200, which is a pretty big hit. Our friend Ira, who's also at the table with us, ended up down $100. But towards the end of the night, we decided to go and play some roulette, and Ira decided to gamble a little bit more to try to make his money back.
If this doesn't hit red, then you lose $380.
No, just 300.
Wow. Come on, dude. I'm tripping. Come on, please, red. Come on.
Big congrats to Ira. He ended up $20 on the session, but he could have been down about 300. So Morongo is a super fun time. The rake at the 1-2 table is definitely a bit much. Anytime you see a flop, they take $2. And if the pot is $20 or more, it's a $5 rake, which is pretty big. So hopefully we can up the stakes a little bit, play maybe some 1-3, maybe some 2-5, so that the rake doesn't burn us too bad. But yeah, until next time, thanks for watching.